So what if the absolute cheapest item in your grocery cart is actually quietly costing you a decade of your life?
Yeah, it's a terrifying thought, honestly.
Right, because we are so accustomed to just looking at a receipt and, accepting it as a finalized math equation. You buy something for $4, the ledger clears, and you walk away thinking the transaction is completely over.
But it's not. I mean, today we're basically tearing up that receipt.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We're looking at this fascinating, kind of terrifying, hidden accounting system that operates entirely inside human biology.
Right, and the source material we're exploring really forces us to completely reevaluate our definition of affordability. Because when we mistake a low price at the point of sale for, well, actual economic value, we kick off this whole chain
The
reaction.
chain reaction of hidden taxes, right?
Yeah,
Taxes that you end up paying out over years, if not decades.
exactly.
And just to set the stage for you listening, our mission today is to shift away from those exhausting, guilt-inducing moral arguments, about what you, quote unquote, should do for your body.
Oh, for sure. No one needs another lecture about eating greens just because it makes you a good person.
Right. Instead, we're diving into a set of highly provocative arguments from our source today that reframes human health through a strictly logical, microeconomic lens. It's all about resource management.
Which is such a refreshing angle.
It really is. So if you've ever felt guilty choosing a premium, nutrient-dense meal over a cheap alternative, or debated if taking an hour to just rest is a waste of productive time, we're going to dismantle that entire mental framework today.
And to do that, we really have to start by attacking the illusion of the cash register.
The illusion of affordable.
Right. When someone claims they're saving money by purchasing highly processed, nutrient-void food, our source argues they're engaging in incomplete accounting.
Because they're only looking at the front-end cost.
Exactly. They are comparing the immediate market price of two items, but totally ignoring the back-end biological operating costs of that cheaper input.
Let's break down that biological operating cost, because the text introduces this concept of a health debt,
Yeah.
which I found absolutely fascinating.
It's the core of the whole argument.
Right. So in traditional finance, if you don't have the cash, you take out a loan and you pay it back with interest. And our biology apparently operates on the exact same principle.
It really does.
When we consume cheap inputs, like, food that fills the stomach that starves the cells, or media that just passes the time but leaves your nervous system totally fried, we aren't actually saving resources.
No, you're just deferring the costs.
Right. And the interest rates on that biological debt are staggering.
Let's look at the actual mechanisms here because the source gets into the weeds on this. When you input highly processed inflammatory material into the body, your immune system has to mount a response to deal with it.
It treats it like a threat.
Exactly. And that response requires energy. We're talking literal ATP produced by your mitochondria.
Wow.
So energy that, should have been allocated to executive function or memory consolidation or tissue repair, it gets violently rerouted just to manage the inflammation in your gut.
Which brings in the whole gut-brain axis, right? We always hear the gut called the second brain, but looking at it as an economic engine is,
Yeah.
it's a game changer.
It really is, because if the gut lining is compromised by those cheap inputs, the biochemical assembly line just breaks down.
The source specifically mentions mood regulation here, doesn't it?
Yeah, because the majority of your serotonin is actually synthesized in the gastrointestinal tract.
Wait, really?
The majority.
Yes. So if that environment is basically engaged in an inflammatory war, serotonin production just plummets.
So the downstream effect isn't just like a stomachache.
Yeah, it's a measurable drop in mood regulation, it's a spike in anxiety, and the sudden onset of brain fog.
Which translates directly into a massive loss of cognitive productivity.
So you saved, what, $5 at the grocery checkout? But you lost 3 hours of focused, deep work the next day because you were staring at your screen through this haze of brain fog.
And if you calculate the actual monetary value of those 3 hours,
That cheap meal was actually the most expensive thing you bought all week.
bingo, that is the hidden tax. The energy you spend just pushing through fatigue or managing chronic low-grade symptoms or, relying on 5 cups of coffee just to hit a normal baseline,
Why?
that is the interest payment on the health debt. The body's ledger is completely unforgiving.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at this from the perspective of someone on a strict, inflexible budget.
Sure.
Inflation is real. Groceries are taking up a much larger percentage of people's income right now.
Absolutely.
So it's really easy to conceptualize these future biological costs as, well, abstract risks, whereas a $100 grocery bill is an immediate, tangible threat to your bank account today.
Right, the math is staring you in the face.
Exactly. So how does this source reconcile the urgency of a limited budget with this biological ledger that might not demand full payment for years?
Well, the text argues that the payment actually isn't deferred for years, it's being extracted daily.
Daily.
Yeah. And the author uses this analogy of the leaking vessel, which captures it perfectly.
Oh, right. I loved this part.
Imagine your daily energetic capacity is a bucket. When you operate on a deficit of cellular nourishment plus high chronic stress, you are basically punching holes in the bottom of that bucket.
It's you're leaking energy all day.
Right. You can pour as much cheap fuel or as many temporary stimulants into it as you want, but you will constantly be running on empty because the vessel just cannot hold the charge.
And the economic reality of that, which the source points out, is that a person operating a leaking vessel actually makes poorer financial decisions.
Yes. They negotiate less effectively, they miss opportunities because their baseline capacity is entirely consumed by just trying to stay upright.
Wow. So the illusion of affordability is a literal trap.
It's a massive trap.
Okay, so if we accept that cheap inputs secretly create this compounding debt, we need a new way to categorize the premium we pay for things like high-quality food, intentional rest, and, nervous system regulation.
We do.
Because if they aren't expenses, what are they?
The source categorizes them as income-generating assets.
Which feels so counterintuitive at first.
It does, because we are incredibly conditioned by the depreciation model of consumer goods.
Right, like buying a tech gadget.
Exactly. You buy a $1,000 smartphone, you open the box, and the moment that seal is broken, the asset loses value. It depreciates with every single use.
And we tend to apply that exact same mental model to health spending. We view a premium grocery bill or the cost of, say, a somatic therapy session as money that's just gone forever, burned in the furnace of daily living.
But biological systems don't follow the depreciation model at all.
That would expand.
Yes. If you invest in high-quality cellular nourishment or protect a full cycle of REM sleep, your body doesn't depreciate. A well-maintained human nervous system is an asset that actively compounds.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that compounding because it's so cool. The financial analogy here is an index fund, right?
That's a great way to look at it.
Like buying a gadget is buying a depreciating liability. But investing in sleep is like buying compounding index funds for your physical capacity.
Because when you engage in practices that downregulate the nervous system, shifting out of that sympathetic fight or flight mode and into parasympathetic rest and digest, you drastically lower your cortisol levels.
And lower cortisol means less wear and tear on the whole system.
Less wear and tear on the endothelial lining of your blood vessels, specifically. And it means much deeper sleep architecture.
Which allows for the release of human growth hormone, right?
Exactly. Repairing tissues at an accelerated rate.
So it literally is the biological equivalent of an index fund. Just like a fund reinvests its dividends to buy more shares, generating exponential growth, a night of really restorative sleep reinvests cellular energy to build a stronger immune system for the next day.
You wake up with a higher baseline capacity than you had 24 hours earlier.
The initial capital you spent, the time, the money for the better inputs, it isn't gone.
No, it is circulating. It's actively working for you, multiplying your subsequent efforts.
That concept of the body as a multiplier completely alters the math of daily life.
Yeah.
But I do have to ask, is the source just giving a fancy intellectual validation to the expensive modern wellness industry?
That's a very fair question.
Because, the wellness industry frequently tries to sell us on this idea, but often by dressing it up in pretty cringy marketing to justify a $50 jar of adaptogenic mushrooms.
Right, the goopification of health.
Exactly.
The text actually addresses this nuance. It points out that the wellness industry sometimes gets this right, even when it packages it terribly.
Okay, so beneath the commercialized trends, there's a core truth.
Yes. Beneath the marketing lies a core economic truth. The health of the organism dictates the value of its output.
Because it's a multiplier.
Think about what it means to multiply an hour. An hour of work performed by someone who is chronically inflamed, sleep-deprived, and just running on cortisol is highly inefficient.
Oh, I've been there. You make errors, you lack creative problem solving,
Yeah.
you're just operating defensively.
We all have. But now, Take that exact same hour of work and give it to someone operating at peak biological vitality.
The output isn't just marginally better.
It is categorically different. They synthesize information faster, they navigate interpersonal conflict with actual emotional regulation, and they generate superior solutions.
And it multiplies relationships, too. The source made a point about this that really stuck with me.
The part about presence?
Yeah. The same 15-minute conversation with a child or a partner carries radically more weight when you aren't secretly fighting off exhaustion the entire time.
It's so true. The effort reaches further. You aren't just adding discrete, healthy activities to your schedule. You are increasing the yield of every single thing you touch.
Which means our entire societal strategy for maintaining human capital is completely backward.
We are entirely focused on reactive crisis management rather than proactive resource allocation.
Right. And the text uses this powerful architectural metaphor to explain it. Health is expensive in the exact same way that building a deep, reinforced concrete foundation is expensive.
You pay a massive premium up front.
Structurally, yeah. Before anyone even sees a house, you pay it so that when you build on top of it, the structure actually holds.
And refusing to invest in preventative health is like deciding to skip pouring the foundation just to save a few bucks.
You build a massive house directly on loose mud, and then you act shocked when the roof caves in and you're forced to pay astronomical emergency repair prices.
It's a perfect analogy, and if we look historically, as the source points out, proactive resource management is not a new or trendy concept.
No, it's ancient.
Right. Traditions like Ayurvedic medicine or regional traditional food systems, somatic practices, these weren't just quaint cultural customs. They were highly sophisticated early risk management protocols.
Because they were developed in eras before emergency rooms and antibiotics even existed.
Exactly. Which meant survival literally depended on maintaining the instrument before it failed. The fundamental strategy was always to change the terrain.
Changing the terrain. I love that phrasing. Let's dive into the mechanics of that because it shifts the focus from fighting external enemies to fortifying the internal environment.
Right. So modern healthcare is largely built on germ theory. Identify the pathogen and kill it.
Which is an intervention at the point of breakdown.
Yes. But terrain theory argues that the state of your internal environment determines whether a pathogen or a chronic condition can take root in the first place.
So by investing in the foundation, through sleep, movement, and nutrient density, you honor the body's intelligence. You make the biological terrain inhospitable to systemic breakdown.
Exactly. Now, biology is still biology, of course.
Right. No amount of organic kale guarantees you won't get hit by a bus or, face a genetic illness.
True. It doesn't eliminate all risk, but it drastically alters your resilience. When a physiological storm hits a well-founded structure, you might lose some shingles, but the walls do not collapse.
You recover faster.
You spend significantly less time in a state of deficit.
So the high cost of healthy living is actually just the cost of not paying later.
Exactly.
And those later payments, as we've established, are rarely made just in dollars. The most chilling realization from the source is what that later payment actually consists of.
It's paid in years.
You are trading years of unencumbered vitality for years of medical management.
That is the ultimate trade-off at the center of this economic model. And it leads us to the final, most critical thesis of the text.
Yes, this is where it all comes together.
When we reject the cheap inputs, when we fund the foundation and treat our biology as a compounding asset, what is the actual product we are buying?
Because you aren't buying a product at all, really. It transcends anything physical.
Right. You aren't buying a glow or a lower pant size or some vanity metric on a smartwatch.
No. When you choose the expensive nutrient-dense food, or when you ruthlessly defend an hour of rest against the demands of our hyper-productive culture, you are buying future access to yourself.
Buying future access to yourself, it's such a profound shift in valuation.
It really is. You're purchasing the version of you that can actually think clearly at 7:00 p.m.
The version of you that isn't locked in a daily hostile negotiation with your own joints or your own digestion.
Think about those moments, for you listening, that were supposed to be ordinary but became something more just because you were actually present for them.
Because how many of us have experienced that terrifying feeling of having to literally excavate joy from a mountain of exhaustion?
Oh, man. So many times. You're at a dinner party with people you love, or you're finally on that vacation you saved up for.
And logically, you should be ecstatic.
But you're so biologically depleted that you have to actively force your face to smile. You have to dig through layers of fatigue just to access a tiny fraction of the experience.
And the reason for that is simple. Presence requires energy.
We tend to think of presence as a spiritual or mental state, don't we?
We do, but it is deeply biological. Sustained, unencumbered presence is highly metabolically demanding. If your baseline capacity is entirely consumed by managing the health debt, fighting inflammation, processing cheap inputs, regulating a frayed nervous system, you literally do not have the surplus cellular energy required to be fully present in your own life.
Which means the truest measure of wealth in this entire framework is presence.
Absolutely. Sustained, embodied presence.
It's not the capital you hoarded by buying the cheapest possible fuel for your body.
No. So the real question for your daily decision-making is never, can I afford to be healthy?
Right. The question is, have I fully accounted for the cost of the alternative?
Exactly. Sustained embodied presence is described by the source as the rarest and most valuable thing a person can possess. It is the ultimate return on investment.
Well, we have covered massive ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
We've completely inverted the ledger today. We started by dismantling the illusion of the cash register and exposing the biological hidden tax of those cheap inputs.
And we moved past that old idea of health as a depreciating, frustrating moral obligation.
All right, we redefined it as a compounding, income-generating asset, an index fund for human capacity.
By focusing on changing the terrain and building an unshakable foundation, we shift from a culture of catastrophic crisis management to intelligent, proactive resource allocation.
We stop trading years of vitality for years of disease management. So the next time you, the listener, are standing in an aisle debating the costs of a healthy choice, or wrestling with the guilt of stepping away from your inbox to just regulate your nervous system, remember the real math.
You are not just spending resources.
No, you are purchasing your own future capacity. You are funding the multiplier that dictates the value of everything else you do. You are buying back the rights to your own unencumbered presence.
It's the best investment you can possibly make.
It really is. But before we wrap up, there's a macroeconomic implication here that definitely warrants its own reflection.
Oh, the global scale of this.
Yeah. We focused entirely on the microeconomics of the individual today, your personal ledger, your personal health debt, your cellular capacity. But if individual physical presence acts as an economic multiplier, we have to look outward.
We have to scale the math up.
Exactly. What is the true uncalculated cost to our global economy, to our collective innovation, when entire societies normalize running on a massive, unacknowledged health debt?
That's the big question.
If millions of people are pouring cheap inputs into leaking vessels, operating on a biological deficit, and merely managing symptoms, could our collective normalized burnout actually be the biggest, most dangerous economic bubble of our time?
It's definitely something to seriously consider.
Something to mull over the next time you assume a price tag is telling you the whole truth. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.